Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. I just want to make sure everything is broadcasting here and give people time to join us. The training lasts about an hour and a half, give or take, depends on load times. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about any feature as I go over them. We do record these trainings, so you can always come back later if you can't stay for the whole time, and or to allow you to share the link with other users who may need to become system admins. So here you see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information for you to get logged in. The first is your username, which should be your email address, all in lowercase letters. Right, your password, which is case sensitive, and then the account name, typically your organization name, right, business name, etc. If for some reason you don't have, say, your password, it wasn't emailed to you, then down here, if you forgot your info link just above the sign-in bar, click on that. Still need the email address. Should be in all lowercase letters. And then here it's saying we need one of the two, right? So we need either the account name the account name up here, the first one, or a phone number. Just a minute here. All right, so either the account name or the phone number on the account, right? That's one of your customer-facing phone numbers. Then you click on the reset password. This is going to send you an email from the system. It's going to have a link in the body of that email to get you to your account page where you can then change your password. It will log you right out and then take you back to the sign-in page. So you can enter in that new password, and then you also have the option here to click on Remember Me. And then we click Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis, so it's taking me here to my dashboard page. If you just recently signed up with us, the first time you log in, you're going to actually instead be taken to your user account page. Now, you can always get to your user account page from the system. Once you're logged in, up here at the top, towards the center, just to the right, you can click on your name. Basically, brings up a big, huge pop-up. This is your user account page where, for instance, you can change your password here. Now, you cannot change your own email address, right? Your own username. So another system admin would have to change it for you. Otherwise, you'd have to contact our billing team or support team. Over here on the left, you have the account settings. Now, this is only something system admins can get to, right? Your users aren't going to be able to get to these other settings here. But like here, you can change the technical contact information. You can also change your time zone for the account and the display language. If you need to change the account name, you actually need to email our billing team, and that's billing@virtualpbx.com. They have to link up other things on their side to make sure everything works properly. Over here on the left, we have add-ons. This is new. This will allow you to add on additional features to your account as they come available. Currently, the only add-on feature available is the text forward feature, which has already been added to this account. Be aware that some features may increase your bill depending on your plan, right? Some will be included, some will increase your bill. Down here, we have your billing portal, and this link will get you to the actual billing portal where you can log in and see previous bills and or change your credit card on file. And then lastly here, we have the option to cancel the account. And this will basically say by the end of your current billing cycle, the account will be canceled. Now, again, any system admin can do this, so you want to be careful about who you're giving admin access. When you're done, click on the close box to the top right corner here, and you'll be here on the dashboard. Now, that first time logging in, also, the Dash Wizard will have pop-ups telling you what certain things are. So like in those account pages, the Dash Wizard would be there. Dash Wizard pop-ups will also start here on the dashboard. It'll also show up on the users and groups tab. So if you look over here to the left, right at the top left corner, I'm on the dashboard, right? That's what's highlighted. These are typically core features of Dash. A couple of them, like auto attendance, are plan specific, but we'll be covering most of these to some degree. Back here towards the top right center, right? You can click on your name anytime, get back to that user account page to change like your password, etc. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have this D&D toggle, right? D&D stands for Do Not Disturb. Right now, my D&D is active, right? Because it's slightly white there. So that means I'm not taking calls, right? So if someone calls into this system, dials my extension number, they're going straight to voicemail. I can click on it to re-enable taking calls, and now it's off. Now, some users may not have the D&D toggle, and that happens when a user is assigned to the call center to be part of the ACD queues. Basically, the queues and the Do Not Disturb feature do not work well together. All right, little phone icon here. This will open up a new tab and take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. It will have a login screen there where you use your Dash login information, and this allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. However, you need to have added a web phone as a device to your user first, right? So if you just signed up with us and clicked on that web phone link, try to log in, it will just sit there circling because it doesn't find the device on your user, right? So once you've added the web phone device to your user, you can click on this, get to that web phone. And we'll be talking about that when we get to the users page. Little chat bubble here. This will open up a new tab and take you to virtualtext.app. This is our texting feature. You do have to have that feature enabled on the user to have the correct login, but then once you log in, you can use that to text to and from your customers. Little question mark icon here. This opens up a chat window at the bottom right of your screen, and you can speak to one of our support reps, and they can help you with whatever feature you're working with. The three horizontal line icon is the menu icon. This takes you to other Dash features. Now, some of these are plan specific, such as dynamic caller ID. Most of them are included. Most of our training will be here on the dashboard, like say 80% of our training time. And then we have the arrow to the right is logging out. Now here in the middle, total users, right? These are people I've added to my account who make and receive calls. Generally speaking, on our plans, when you add a new user, you're increasing your bill. So something to be aware of. Then we have total devices. I have 24 devices and a breakdown here. First up is a cell phone. So you can add a cell phone or a landline number as a device on your account. And then when the call comes to your main number, we can route it to your cell phone. Something to keep in mind, when it rings to your cell phone and you pick up, you're not going to be able to transfer that call to anyone else. Right? It's basically an endpoint. And there's, at least as of now, there's no charge for adding a cell phone or landline number to your account. Next up is soft phone. This is a software application that acts like a phone, right? So it uses your internet connection, so it counts as a VoIP device. This bucket here includes both third-party soft phone apps as well as a VirtualPBX soft phone. Now, if you use a soft phone app, say on your cell phone, and we send the call to that app, then from that app, you can transfer calls. Web phone, this is that Chrome or Firefox device. Counts as a VoIP phone, but again, it's just another bucket here. SIP phone, this is a piece of hardware, right? This is a physical phone. It sits on someone's desk, typically connects via Ethernet cable to your router to get on the internet. You just then pick up the handset, dial, and you can make and receive calls. Down here, I have unregistered devices. I have one, and that means I have disabled one of the devices on the devices tab. Total numbers, I have 15 phone numbers on the account. Your account includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. And the typical overage for that is $1.99 per month per phone number. So most likely I'm over. Here I've got a couple breakdowns. So first up is assigned numbers and spare numbers, right? Assigned number means you're using it actively, right? Someone can dial an assigned number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax. Spare number, you're not currently using it. It still counts towards your allotment of phone numbers. You're just either not about to use it, right? So you're about to, like, say, open a new location and you just haven't published the number yet publicly because you're getting all the marketing materials up and ready, right? Or you took a number out of service, say like a promotion just ended. So let's say you're having a Labor Day sale and say, okay, Labor Day's over. That sale is no longer in effect. All promotions are done. And you had a special phone number for most of those that were calling me in on. You could take that out of service to reduce call traffic in that regard. Right. Next, you've got US DID and US toll-free. So US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down. And then US DID, that's just a US local phone number, right? So a number, say, in San Jose, California, US DID, just as if you had one, say, in Elmira, New York. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're so interested, you need to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know if that's possible and if there are any additional requirements. If there are requirements, that's coming from the country in question, not from us. And it's going to vary, right? Like the UK, they typically don't have any kind of requirements, whereas like Germany wants like proof of incorporation or some of that kind of paperwork. Conference bridges, I have 5. That means I have enabled the conference feature on 5 of my users, right? So these are 5 people who host or moderate the conferences. Over here towards the top right, I've got my main number blocks, right? So I've got 2 phone numbers listed here. These numbers act the same way, right? They all go into the same location on the system. They're all going to have the same main greeting, for example. Right. Conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference numbers. But everyone would have to dial the number to join, right? That includes your staff members, your clients, your vendors, whoever is going to join the conference, dials the number. They'll be prompted to enter conference room number or PIN number. Fax box number, you can have one main fax box number, right? This is your inbound fax number. It also allows you to set up the fax box for outbound faxing as well, if you're so inclined. Down here, then we've got the company directory. There's 2 download links. One is CSV, the other is softphone. The CSV file is just that. It's a CSV file. You use it on your favorite spreadsheet program. It's going to list your staff members with their names, their extension number, and their normal devices. The softphone link is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application. Excuse me. So if you're using our softphone app on a Mac or Windows PC, you can download this file and then upload it to the softphone app on your computer, and it will list the other softphones on your account with us. Right? So I could see, oh, my coworker Mike is on a call right now, so I should not call him to talk about a customer that we have in common, right? That we're working with. Right? Once I see his icon turn green, I'm like, oh, he's off the phone. Now I can call him. Now, that works great if you're only using the VirtualPBX softphone app. Right? If you have staff members using multiple devices, you're not going to see the status of those other devices. VirtualPBX Store, this opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone, among other devices. And the account realm, each account has its own account realm. It's used in a couple things. First, it's used in third-party softphones. Right? It's one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to make that third-party application work. The other primary use is for outbound faxing. So once you have your fax box set up to send out faxes, you don't actually have to log into your Dash account. You just create an email like you normally do. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number that you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. right? So the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. Right? It ignores the subject line of the email. It ignores the body of the email. It only faxes one attachment. So one attachment per fax, or one fax per attachment, however you want to say it. All right, up here back towards the top here, so I have dashboard, VPBX new hire sandbox, and then I have caller ID. You can click on this and expands out. Now this first pull down, you can choose any of your main numbers that are assigned. Right, so unfortunately it won't show up here on my streaming software, but it would, when I click on it normally, it would show up the two numbers I have available. Whichever one you select, that becomes your default number. So for instance, when your VoIP phones make an outbound call, by default, they're going to use this phone number as the outbound caller ID. You have the option here for the company caller ID name, or CNAME. This is completely optional, but in this box here to the right, you can enter in up to 15 characters. It does count spaces and special characters as part of that 15. Then after you would click on Save Changes, we would associate that text with your phone number whenever you make an outbound call from a VoIP phone. Next up, the company emergency information, or E911, wants a North American address. So for our Canadian customers, in the zip code field, that's where you would put your postal code. And in the state, that is where you would put your 2-character province abbreviation. Right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, if you did enter information in the company caller ID name field here, it takes about 3 business days for the other carriers who support this feature to update their servers. That's not something we can control. Some things to know about CNAME is we can only control what we send out. What is received on the other end is not something we can control, right? Basically, when you make a call out from your VoIP phones, right, we send the phone number and this text out. Now, if any carrier between us and that destination phone number doesn't support CNAME, well, your CNAME doesn't make it to the end, so only the phone number goes through. That last carrier, so the receiving carrier at the end, they have final say about what shows up on the phones on their network. They have 3 options. The first is they see the phone number and the text we send, they pass it through. Everybody's happy. Second option is they see the name and number, they ignore the name that we submit, they look up the phone number in their own database that we may not have access to, and use that name instead. But the phone number still goes through. And lastly, and probably the most common, they see the name and number, they ignore the name, they only send the number through. That is actually the typical response we see from the cell phone carriers. Right? So when you call out from your VoIP phone to a cell phone, more often than not, it's only going to send your phone number. Right? The name, so like my carrier, when I looked into it, they wanted to charge another $10 a month in order to have CNAME information show up on calls that come to my cell phone. And most of the carriers are somewhere between $5 to $10 range, depending. All right, hold music. So this hold music is defined as after a call has come into your system and reached one of your staff members' VoIP phones, right? Your staff member is picked up, answered the call initially, and that's press hold on their VoIP device. That's when this media file will play. Now, you can upload your own files. The system will play back .wav and .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. I do recommend recording in mono, as that will give you a longer duration file for that 1 megabyte. A 1 megabyte MP3 is approximately 5 minutes long. Right, so you would click Browse to find the file on your device, and then once you have it selected, click the little up arrow icon that will upload it, and then you would click on Save Changes, and then this will become the default hold music for all your VoIP phone users. Right, so basically your whole staff. Now, ours is part of main number, but in terms of getting the main number set up completely, you want to have your users and groups most likely already in place. So I'm going to skip down here on the left to users. So here this shows all my users on the account. The people with the blue suit icon, these are my system admins, right? So they can make all these changes I'm talking about. The little gray person icon, these are your standard users. They have very limited access. Like typically they can check their voicemails. They can set up call forwarding for themselves. See their call history. If they're part of the queues, they can access the queues as well. Up here at the top is where you add new users, right? So you need to give them a first name and last name, right? The system wants some sort of text here. I have literally seen customers put in like A and B as the first, for first and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you cannot reuse an email address for multiple staff members. This is what the system uses to communicate with your staff members, right? So like those password reset emails or voicemail notifications, this is the email address they get sent to by default. Then you create a password for the user. Then you got the main extension number. You can enter in any number you want here. The system typically starts off with extension 1000, I believe. By default, the system will create a voicemail box for this user automatically, right? So this voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say you added a user, you added the VirtualPBX soft phone to them, for example, so they're able to get registered right away. From their soft phone, they could dial *98. That will log them directly into this voicemail box that was created. The system will then prompt them to create a voicemail box PIN number. It will walk them through recording their name, which the system uses for the smart PBX directory, and then walks them through recording their voicemail box greeting. So then basically they're completely set up as far as their voicemail box is concerned. Here you have the option to include them in the user directory. You can always change that later. You have an option here to send emails to an alternate address. So if you want those email notifications to go to an email other than the one that they use for login, you would click on this box here and then enter that different email address in this field. You can always change this later as well. And lastly, which is I think pretty important, is send credentials to the user, right? So if you put a check mark here and then click on create user, they will get an email welcoming them to the Dash account with their login credentials. If you need to add multiple, you would click on create user and add another. All right. So once a user is created, you can click on their name. You can always change their name if you need to. Here's your option to change their credentials. All right. So you can change the email address, you can change their password. And then here is also, you can send them the password reset email. So they can change their own password. So for instance, if I wanted to have another system admin, like I need, let's say for this Jean, right? So she needed to have her email changed. I could go in as an admin and change her email address for her, right? And she could do the same to me if necessary. All right, extensions, you can have users have multiple extensions if you want them to, right? You would just click on add new extension. If you want to change their extension number, I recommend adding the new extension number first, clicking save changes, then you would click on the box again, and then unassign the original extension number. Up here, phone numbers, users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. You've got two options. You've got add from spare or by new. So add from spare, this is how you would reuse a phone number, right? Any phone number that's in spare, you can assign someplace, right? So if you unassign it, it becomes a spare number. So I could add, say, this 866 number here and add it as a number. So now once I click, like if I click save changes, so now Ariel here has two phone numbers that people can reach them directly. Right, and if I unassign it, that toll-free number now becomes a spare number again. Right, by numbers is how you add new numbers to the account. And you have two options, local or toll-free. Toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. And then you click on search, and it's going to give you a list of numbers. Now, this list of phone numbers is dynamic, meaning you actually, technically, you're competing with other people in real time. So you want to complete the whole process of adding a number, and you don't want to stop, basically, for a long time in between. You can scroll through this list to see numbers that are available. You click add next to any that you like. You can add multiple if you want. And to show up here, little trash can icon if you change your mind. Otherwise, you just click on by numbers. Once you click on by numbers, that's when you're actually claiming the numbers, right? Just adding it to my cart, it doesn't reserve the number in any way. So now the system went through and said, oh, the number was truly available. So it added it directly here to Ariel's user. Local, slightly different in that you need to know the area code. So for instance, I could do a search for 408. There might be some here. So 408 is the San Jose area code. And it looks like there's plenty here. Let's do, all right. But any area code, you can get this message. This is just saying that the area code is exhausted, right? And that's just basically because of the explosion of cell phone devices. Households may have had one or two phone numbers, back in the 80s, but now they may have 4 or 5, right? So when this happens, you would want to do, choose your favorite search engine and do a search for, in this case, area code 310 overlay, right? That would tell you that the overlay for 310 is 424. 310 is in Southern California, near LA. So now you see, and basically, so what it's an overlay area codes, basically that means there's 2 area codes or more that have the same geographic area, right? So 310, 424, they have the same geographic boundaries. So, neighbors could have, one can have a 310 and the other one can have a 424. Likewise, especially if you know the area, right, you can know what the other area codes are in that vicinity and check those as well. But beyond that, it's the same process, right? You click add next to a number you like or multiple, click on by numbers, and then the system verifies that it's truly available and adds it directly to this location. Now you see here, there's a little gear icon to the right. So you can update the caller ID for each phone number, right? In terms of the outbound CNAME information, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME, right? Which would show up on your staff members' phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address. This allows you then, especially if you have staff working remotely, to have a phone number with their address, and then you can associate that information to their VoIP device. So that way, if they ever have to dial 911 from their VoIP phone, the correct address is sent to emergency services. We have prepend. This is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones displays. So when a call comes in, so I could say, I put in direct, right? So if someone calls this phone number to get to Ariel, on Ariel's phone, it will say direct and then the person's phone number, right? So that way he knows, oh, they called them directly. All right, devices, you can add devices to a user, right? Add friend spare would be making use of or reusing a device potentially, or just assigning a device that hadn't been previously assigned, or you can just click on a new device. Now, the first option here is SIP phone, right? That's that physical device, connects to an Ethernet cable. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some of them have a lot of models to work with. Some of them, like a dozen, right? No matter what you work with, right? Find the make and model. You want to give it a name, right? So like Bob's phone or warehouse phone, something that you can recognize. Oh, this is where it's supposed to be. Like I know the layout of my office where it's supposed to be. Then you want the MAC address. This is unique to each device, typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can go to its status settings typically, or basic settings, and find the MAC address there. And then you would enter it here, and then click on Create Device. Once the device is added to the user, right? So you click Create Device and then Save Changes, right? Then you would come back, click on the device again, and then go to Advanced and select Miscellaneous. Where it says Allow Reprovision, you would click Unlock. This box would then disappear, and then you would click Save Changes here. So now that's telling our system, hey, this phone's about to provision. And in terms of our dashboard, you're basically done. However, you need to access that phone's web user interface. That's basically getting the IP address directly from the phone and inputting that on your browser's address bar. That computer and that phone should be on the same network, and then you log into the phone. You basically you have to give the phone a specific URL to go to get its configuration file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to support.virtualpbx.com. Do a search for auto provisioning. It's going to give you a document for these various manufacturers. There'll be screenshots of what to look for and where to go. the proper syntax for that URL, and at least a couple of them have like specific settings to make sure match. When you go through all that, right, you would click update or save or confirm, and then click on auto provision. The phone's going to reboot a couple times, and then once it does, it would show up as a green device here on the dashboard, letting you know it's registered. All right. Next up is cell phone. Again, you want to give it a name, right? So like David Cell, right? And then here in the number field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then you click on create device and then save changes. So once it's here, I'm going to click on the one that I already have here. So you see here, I gave it a name. Here's the +1 area code and number. If I go to advanced, I only have one option here for options. And this is the default setup for cell phones and landlines. So call comes in, right? Reaches David, myself, right? So it comes out, reaches me. It's going to my cell phone. When my cell phone rings, I pick up. When I pick up, the first thing I hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm here, and yes, I want to take this call. It then connects the inbound caller to me. I help the person. Now, that's great if there's an actual person answering the call. If, for instance, you've also contracted out with another company to be an automated answering service for your after-hours calls, for instance. So they give you a phone number, say, hey, just send calls to this phone number, and then our system will handle your after-hours calls. That's great. You would add it, come here to your Dash account, add it as a cell phone or a landline. However, in that scenario, right, we're sending it to an automated answering service. Well, that automated answering service can't press 1, right? It just wants to pick up the call and take it. So for that instance, you would click here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail. You put a check mark here, click save changes. So now when we send out calls to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right, so then the automated answer service takes over and they handle the call. Now, if this is my personal cell phone and I have this checked, what can happen is my cell phone voicemail can pick up. That's still a pickup tone. So that inbound caller ends up on my personal cell phone's voicemail. Now, some people really want that. Some people really don't. So that's something to be aware of. The other thing is that comes into play, or can come into play, is this one here. Keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls into the system, reaches my cell phone, and on my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. I don't recognize it. I've been getting hit by telemarketers or political calls or what have you. And I'm like, yeah, you can go to voicemail. I'll get back to you later if you're important. Right? Which means I could miss a sale, right? Or have an upset customer. So what I could do here is uncheck this, right? So now when a call comes in, I'm not seeing customer Mary's phone number anymore. Instead, if we go back to the dashboard here, I see this 512 number that I selected as my main number. Right, so call comes in, and it doesn't matter which phone number customer Mary called in on. Right, and this is this 512 number is what's going to show up on my cell phone. So then I know, oh, this is a work call, right? Just by looking at it. So then I can pick up and help customer Mary. All right, next up is soft phone. Now, whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone to the system, you're going to get this warning message. Please make sure you read it at least once. It's basically saying, hey, there's wireless VoIP technology, and if you dial 911 from a soft phone or a web phone, you might not be at the location that's associated with your E911. So you want to be careful about doing that. So we can close that, and then we're going to get this big box showing up here. So when you add a soft phone device directly to a user, it defaults you to adding a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using someone else's application, right? So you're using, say, XLite from Counterpath. You would then give it a name. You would copy the SIP username here. Click on the SIP password box. You would want to copy and paste this someplace, probably directly into your soft phone app. And then here you have the account realm again. So that those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that third-party soft phone. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, this is the only place you can add it, right? Directly here to the user, down here at the bottom, right? So right below where it says the view the configuration link, there's this toggle. It says use third-party application. Kind of hard, might be hard to read on on YouTube. But if you click on it, now it flips it. Now it says use VirtualPBX application. You give it a name, you click on create device, and then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Dante in this case, but whatever user you're on, they'll get an email saying your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It will give them their username and their password specifically to use with that app, as well as download links, right? So they can use to their Android or iPhone or onto their Mac or Windows PC. The other one here is web phone. Again, you get that warning message. You just need to give it a name, click on create device, and then save changes. So now that web phone link at the top will work for the user, or they can just go directly to webphone.virtualpbx.net. The web phone uses the user's username and password to get in, right? So it needs to be assigned to a user in order to work properly. Right, user features. So first up is caller ID number. This is basically you're changing their outbound caller ID. When you enable it, you select a phone number that's assigned to them, right? So they have their own phone number. You click on save changes. So now, whenever I make an outbound call, my outbound caller ID is a 775 number in Nevada, right? If I don't have it, like so, I leave it like so, not enabled, then by default it becomes that main number, the 512. Typically, you may have, I don't know why it's not showing up here. That's weird. There's also the virtual text feature, which normally is the second one over here. If you just signed up with us and it's not showing up, then you definitely want to reach out to our account services team, right? Account services at virtualpbx.com, and then set up a meeting. They need to talk to you about how you're going to be using texting and about SMS registration. Voicemail box typically will be enabled when you create a new user, but these are basically the default settings. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they're full and cannot hold any more. Now, for your user voicemail boxes, that's usually not a big deal, right? Because most people will check their voicemails and delete them. For any voicemail boxes that you create on the voicemail box page, that might be a different story. Now, by default, there are 3 ways to listen to a message, but there's only 2 ways to manage your voicemail box, right? So one of the ways is via email. So voicemail to email is enabled, and that means this here's we attach the message to the email message, right? So the user gets an email, says you get a voicemail. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the extension number. There'll be an MP3 attachment they can click on and listen to directly, right? So they can listen to the message so they know what it says. That's not managing their voicemail box. The ways to listen and manage your voicemail box is up here, user portal, right? So you would log into dash.virtualpbx.com. Most of your staff members are going to be users. They'll be defaulted here to their voicemail tabs, so they can see their voicemails, right? The date, the time. They can play them back. They can download them. They put up a check mark in here, and they can change the status. So now it's no longer there. And then the other way is to call into your system, right? So if you have your main number set to go to your virtual receptionist, which we'll be getting to shortly, when they hear that main greeting, your staff members can dial *97 from any phone, cell phone or landline, VoIP phone. All right. However, from their VoIP phone, they can just pick it up and dial *98, go directly to their voicemail box. So they'll have the option to listen to their messages. They'll also be given the option to delete the messages or save it, etc. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. When you click enable, this allows you as an admin to determine how those devices are going to ring. Now, by default, they're all set to do not ring because you have to tell the system which devices do you want to use. Uncheck the devices. All right, you have a little green bar here. You click and drag that to the right to give it a ring time. Oops. Up here are timestamps, and this last one you can edit. By default, it's at 120 seconds, 2 minutes, right? You can change that to be shorter or longer if you need to. You can also click distribute. So now it equalizes out over that entire time between the two devices, and it brings in this order every time. If I change the duration down, right, well, that's not very helpful. So I would click distribute again to equalize it out. Now you may have noticed that these are movable, right? So I can click and drag. I haven't actually changed the order yet, right? It's still ringing this device first. But when I click distribute, now the web will go first. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the follow me feature. If I think I'm on my user here, right? So if I'm part of a ring group, which we'll be getting to next, and a call comes to me from the group, that call from the group only ignores these follow me settings. It's going to ring all three of my phones at once. Fax box. You can decide to have users have their own fax box if you want to. When you click enable, you're given the option here to use a spare number, buy a new number, or assign a new extension, which basically means they're having two extensions. I recommend making use of phone number, as that gives that person the most versatility. Right? They can send and receive faxes basically, and anyone can send them a fax. Now, if you assign a new extension number to them, right, first you have to find an available extension, but now you're limiting this user. For instance, they're not going to be able to send a fax out because the system will look at their fax box on their user, use whatever extension number you assign as its outbound caller ID, which will fail. Also, you might limit who can send them a fax, right? So some of the electronic fax services, they don't have a provision for adding an extension number. They just say, hey, enter the phone number, send, right? And so that means the staff member won't be able to get a fax from those types of users. Conference bridge. Up here, you click to enable. That means this person becomes a conference moderator. The only other thing you would need to set up here is their personal PIN number, which they can change on their own via the user portal. You have this option here for video conferencing. That's for your in-house conferences, right? So anyone on your Dash account, they can make use of video conferencing. Anyone who's calling in from outside would not. Call forwarding. So you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own via the user portal or directly from their VoIP phones. Failover mode is something you would set up for if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered, that the system will automatically forward the call. All right, so you would click on failover mode. Here you choose a cell phone or landline, right, mobile or desk phone. And then here you put the phone number, right, +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then save changes. Now, this is great if the person only has VoIP phones. If you've already added a cell phone device to the user, you don't need to make use of call forwarding, especially if it's part of their follow me settings, or you didn't turn follow me at all, so then all their VoIP phones, right? Right, so like if I go back to follow me, right, I re-enable it, I uncheck all devices, and one of these is a cell phone, right? This one right here. I click distribute. So now I don't need to make use of call forwarding for this user because they already have a cell phone as part of their call mix. So it's already forwarding to their cell phone, right? If I added forwarding on top of it, now I'm double forwarding, right? It's going to try to reach my users, including my cell phone, and then try to hit my cell phone again, which could cause problems. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this. Right? You have to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record. Inbound internal is a coworker call, right? So Dante called me. Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Outbound internal, I called Dante. Outbound external, I called customer Mary. Right? So we normally see something like this, right? The external ones are, or just all of them. right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Your account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you just sign up for this, go to the pricing page. It will usually be under the details. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you're going to want to talk to our account services team about options. The primary one is we would recommend getting an AWS account if you don't already have one. You can then turn on AWS integration on your Dash account with us. This allows you to link your Dash account with AWS. So then you can store your calls with them and not with us, right? And you would basically, this feature on your users would be off, and you would have a different interface basically to do your call recording. But for heavy call volume, it's going to be more cost effective to store your calls with AWS than with us. Music on hold, you can choose to have your users have their own hold music files, right? You would click up here to enable. And then here, you would either choose from a file that's already on the system or click upload a .mp3 or .wav up to 1 megabyte in size. Click the up arrow icon to save it or upload it, and then save changes. So now whenever this user presses hold on their web phone, that music file that you uploaded is what plays. So for instance, your sales team, you might have a hold music file, focusing in on like your special promotions you have running, right? Whereas maybe for like your support people, you might have, talk about, here's a link, going to a link on our website for the FAQs or what have you. Do not disturb. That's you can turn on do not disturb on a user here, so that way they're not taking calls. Although for your users, they would just most likely do it up here at the top if they still have that. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature designed for like hybrid scheduling or shared office environments. Give it a hot desk ID. So if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, I would just say make their hot desk ID their extension number. You have the option to require a PIN number, and then you would click Save Changes. So I come into the office on Tuesdays. I sit down at desk number 2, pick up the handset on the VoIP phone that's there. I hit *11. Right, that turns on hot desking on that phone. The system asks me for my hot desk ID. I enter it, and then it says, now calls will be sent to me at this device. Now, rest of my workday, any calls coming to my user ring at the phone I'm sitting at, right, at desk number 2. End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time I come into the office, let's say that's Thursday, right? Angela's sitting at desk number 2. I say good morning. I move on to desk number 5. Same thing. Pick up the handset, *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to me at desk number 5. All right. So now that we have users with devices, we can go to groups, right? Groups are departments, also referred to as ring groups or hunt groups. So up here at the top, you would click Add Group. You need to give it a name. You need to give it an extension number. Then you want to click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. You click on Create Group here at the bottom right. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. Right? You can always change the name. Right? This is typically something what you would see internally or within the system. It's not something your customers necessarily know, right? Group call attempts. Over here to the right, there's little arrows so you can increase or decrease this. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the members of your group. You have the option here to delete a group if you no longer need it. And if you made any changes, click on Save Changes. Over here to the right, we have the members box. This shows my staff members who are assigned to this group and how calls are being offered to them. This setup is referred to as blast ringing or ring all, right? So basically call comes in, all 3 users, all their phones ring, right? So calls from the group, ignore the user feature, follow me, right? So whether they have 1 phone or 15 phones, which would be a lot for 1 person, but all of them would ring, right? Now, if say Taylor and Dante both picked up at the same time, right? Well, only one of them can actually speak to the customer, right? So the system has to decide. So let's say the call went to Dante, right? So Dante's helping the customer. What happens is Taylor's going to hear dead air. He's, let's say, hello, thank you for calling, blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's someone there, hello, hello, right? And hang up. Now, if they're in the same office, right, Taylor could probably hear that Dante picked up and not really worry about it, right? In a remote working situation, you would have to have like something like Slack or something to confirm that someone got the call, or system admins would want to check the call log to see what happened with the call. Now, up here at the top, you have timestamps, right? So you can set up how much time the call will be offered to your staff members. The default is 120 seconds. Just like the follow me, right? You can click distribute. So now it rings in this order every time. Right? So call comes in, rings to Taylor, right? He picks up. Second call comes in, it's still going to be offered to Taylor, even though he's still on that first call. It doesn't skip him, right? So then after 40 seconds, then it goes to me, right? Then I pick up the call. So now say Taylor and I are both on calls, a third call comes in. Still going to offer to each of us first. So a minute and 20 seconds, give or take. And then it goes to Dante. So especially if your groups are somewhat busy, you might want to click and drag these over so that those later callers don't have to wait on hold for as long. Now, just like in groups or on the user feature, right, the follow me feature, you can click and drag and click distribute, right? So Taylor needs to work on something specific. Down here, you can add new users if you need to. They're added at the beginning, but you can click distribute now. But again, these are clickable, so you can change the order, but you can also slide these around to adjust what the ring times are about. Likewise, you can remove people and when they're no longer part of this team. And then any changes you make, click here on Save Changes. Groups have at least one extension because you needed to give them one when you first assign them, but you can assign additional extension numbers. Groups can also have their own phone numbers, right? So add from spare, buy from new. Right, same as before as we saw under users. Now, one thing I should point out, for when you add a phone number to a group or to a user, that phone number doesn't have hours of operation. It doesn't have holidays. It's open 24/7. Next up, we've got group features. First up is ring back. So calls come into the group, rings your staff members. That ringing sound is then piped back to that inbound caller, right? That's ringing back. If you don't want that ringing sound to be heard by your inbound callers, you can enable this feature up here. You can upload your own file, right? .mp3.wav up to 1 megabyte. Or you can find a media file that's already on the account. Now, one thing to know is that this media file should match or exceed the total ring time of your group. The system does not loop it for you. Next action, click here to enable. And it's if no one picks up, where do you want to send the caller? You have this pull down to choose from, right? You can send them back to your main menu. If you have queues, you can send it to a call queue. You can send it to a specific person, right? One of your other users. You can send it to a specific device. You can send it to one of your other groups. You can send it to a voicemail box. Right? And then save changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. Again, if they have cell phone devices as part of their normal device mix, they don't need to make use of this. Caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. When you enable it up here, you can add either text or numbers to show up on your staff members' VoIP phones as part of the caller ID display. I recommend only using one of these, not both, as it can be quite confusing and long. I usually prefer text myself, just because that seems to be quicker for me to understand, but whichever way works for you and your staff. All right, so now we've got users and groups. Now we can go to the main number over here on the left. So first up, main company numbers. You can always add more numbers, right? Either from spare or by new. Get the little gear icons and you update the caller ID, E91 or prepend, etc. Office hours, 24-hour open office means you're open 24/7. Right. Otherwise, you choose custom office hours. For each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark here, and then select your open hours in 24-hour or military time in these boxes here to the right. You also have the option here to say you're closed for lunch at the same time every day that you're open. Right? You just put a check mark here, put your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time, and then save changes. Now we have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. Otherwise, leave it unchecked. Excuse me. Over here to the right, you have add holiday. You have a single day, date, range, and advanced. Selecting any one of these will create a new row. All right, so single day is like I have here for Christmas Day, and I gave it a name. I choose the month and the date. I click on Save Changes. Date range, like here for holiday, right? Gave it a name. Choose a start date, end date, Save Changes. There's no year indicator, so as a precaution, we recommend against a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. That has not been a problem for I don't know how long now, but better to be safe than sorry. Advanced is like I have here for Memorial Day, right? I gave it a name. I choose the month. And then in this second pull down, which unfortunately doesn't show, you have first through fifth as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? And then save changes. If you want to remove a holiday, you click on the little trash icon here, and then save changes. And now we have incoming call handling. This is the big kahuna, right? So for my main numbers, right, those 2512 numbers, when calls come in during my open hours, these are my options. Right, during my after hours, again, same basic options, and again for holidays. Right, so first option here, calls come in, they go to my virtual receptionist. The virtual receptionist is a link. So if I click on that, it's going to open up a big box. And you see here, I've got my menu options, my greetings and settings. Main menu. Down here, you have add route. Right, this gives you the option to add more menu options. Right, so 0 through 9, the star key and the default action. And then here, the pull down, things that are already on the account, right? Users, groups, voicemail boxes, devices, etc. You have this whole set of pull down to look through. Right, and if you don't want an option here, you can just click X on the right of it. Greetings. This is where you say thank you for calling, right? Usually your organization name, and then you want to give directions, right? Press 0 to leave a message, right? Press 2 to speak to our support team, etc. Right? Depending on what you already set up here under your main menu. Text to speech, you type in the greeting, click update, save, and save changes. The system will then repeat it back in a computerized robotic voice. You have up to 250 characters to use, not words, characters. So it's something to be aware of. So it's good for a simple start, especially if you're not used to a PBX system of any sort. Or your new business. Now, the downside of the text-to-speech greeting is that the system names the file for you. And in this case, it'd be my main open hours menu TTS, right? So even if I type in something else here, I click update, save, and save changes. Now I have two files called main open hours menu TTS. When we get to the greetings tab, you can go there and change file names. So like basically what I say is if you make use of a text-to-speech greeting, which is fine, go to your greetings tab after you've done setting it up and change the name to something you'll recognize. Because from a pull down, if you have multiple main open hours menu TTS files, you won't know which one is which. Upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, up to 1 megabyte in size. Right, find the file on your device, click update, save, and save changes. You have choose from existing recordings. This pull down shows you every media file on the account. Old music files, main greetings, voicemail greetings. So that's why you want names that identify them relatively easily. You can record a greeting over the phone. Now, by default, as a security measure, the system will only allow you to record a greeting over the phone with a VoIP phone that's on the account, right? When it says pick up a phone, register on the account, that's what it means. Now, for some reason, that's not what you want to do, right? You want to call in from your cell phone or a landline or what have you. Down here under settings, where it says allow outside recording, turn that on. Now you can call in from any number and change your main greeting. The other thing you need is this PIN number, right? This PIN number is specific to this menu at this time of day only, right? So this is my open hours. So if I called in, say over the holiday weekend and tried to enter this PIN number, I would have gotten an error right? So this is invalid entry. Because at that point, especially yesterday, I could have been under my holiday schedule or my after hours, depending. But under normal circumstances, when you call in, you would hear your main greeting play, right? Enter the PIN number. And then the system will say, oh, it's your open hours, it's the correct PIN number. It will then change over into recording mode and walk you through recording a new greeting. Now, when you have a greeting in place already, the system overwrites the main greeting that's in there with the content you're about to create. Doesn't change the file name, just says, hey, we have a new main greeting that's already in place. It's now this content instead. And that can be problematic, especially coming to holiday season, if you get in a rush. Basically, because we can't recover the file for you, because on our system, it's already been overwritten. Unless you have the files yourself, there's wouldn't be a way to replace it easily. Professional recording services. When you click order, this opens a new tab, takes you to Snap Recordings, where you can use, essentially you're hiring a voice actor or actress to record your greeting for you, right? They bill you directly, they email you the completed file, and then you would upload your own file. Upload your own file. All right, settings. First up, we have number of missed tries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So with 2 here, that means, all right, I have 2 there. That means my inbound caller has 3 total attempts, right? Because I have 1 built-in attempt and then 2 more retries. I usually don't recommend going much more than 2 or 3. But basically, caller calls in, and they press 5, right? Not a valid option. The system would say, repeat the greeting. They press 7 the second time. Still not a valid option. Still not an extension number. So the system plays the greeting 1 last time, and they went back to 5. Now, at that point, the system would either send them to my default action, which is this one here, which sends it to my Smart PBX directory. If I don't have a default action, it would end the call. It would say, we did not recognize your entry. Goodbye. Dialing timeout is how much time the system listens for an additional button press. So when that caller, calls in and presses 5, the system waits for 5 seconds. In this case, in case they want to enter an additional digit, or like 582, right? So they can enter a session number directly. And again, 5 is typical. I think the system defaults to 10, which is a little high for me. Allow outside recording, we already covered. By default, this is set to off as a security measure. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And that just means if the inbound caller gets this virtual receptionist and enters a valid extension number anywhere on the system, it will transfer the call automatically, right? So to a user, to a group, etc. Right? If I turn this off, that means my inbound caller can only press these menu options, right? So 0, 2, and 4. Anything else is invalid entry. And then suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if I don't want that message to play, we did not recognize your entry message to come through, I would then turn this on, right? In that case, you would have a default action that probably goes someplace, right? To a specific user or a group, etc. Any changes you make to your main menu, your settings, or your greetings, you want to click Save here at the bottom. It takes you back to your incoming call handling page. You want to click Save Changes here as well. You're clicking Save twice. Now, what I have here for my after hours is the second option, which is referred to as the live operator answer option, designed to basically give one of your staff members a chance to answer the call, or one or more of your staff members a chance to answer the call first. If they can't, then the caller gets sent to the virtual receptionist. So this is a pull down here, so you can get to any of your users, your groups, your queues, specific device, etc. But then whatever you select, right? If they're not able to pick up, then it goes to this virtual receptionist. Now, this is my after hours receptionist. So I have different menu options. I likely have a different greeting in place. And then I have these settings. Then for my holidays tab, I chose this last option here where I'm sending callers straight to a voicemail box. Now, this pull down, I don't have to say skip the voicemail, right? I can say, hey, uh, offer it to Dante, right? Because he's like my holiday on duty person. Likewise, I could send it to a call queue. I can send it to my support group, right? I can even have a media file play saying, hey, happy holidays. We're not open right now, right? So whatever I choose up here at the top, right? The special option is the skip the voicemail. And then you choose the voicemail box you want it to go to. Now, this last option that you've seen here, this only comes up in a couple cases. This is for if you have multiple auto attendants that you've allowed one of them to be available in the main menu, or if you have advanced call flows that we'll set up with our account services team. Main conference number, you can add multiple, right? So you can buy from spare or add from spare or buy new, right? But it goes to the same set of conference rooms. Once you do have conference number, you can edit the conference room greeting to choose to have a custom text-to-speech greeting. Even if you leave this disabled, the system says welcome to the conference, and that prompts them to enter the conference room number and that PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number. This is your inbound fax number. But once you do have a number here, you can edit the fax box. All right, first up here with the inbound notification. So anytime a fax comes in, Rose gets an email saying you have a new fax, right? Hit the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and then a PDF attachment. Now, if someone dials my main fax box number, say from their cell phone, right? They hear fax tones, they hang up, at least most people do. Rose would still get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. It would still have the date, the time, and phone numbers involved, but no attachment. Now, sometimes in the body of that email, it will say a wireless number, right? Or wireless caller. Right? That would tell you someone misdialed. But if it's a number you recognize or were expecting a fax from, then you'd want to contact them to say, hey, that fax didn't get through. Email permissions, this is designed to put your company's email domain in the box here to the right. That means anyone at your company can send a fax out from the system, even if they're not a user on the Dash account, right? They just need to do that +1 area code and phone number, @ symbol. They need the account realm information, and then they just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file, and they can send a fax out. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So available on some plans and not others. The most common use cases we see are for sub-menuing purposes, right? So you want callers call your main number, and then you give them the option for 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Well, when you do that, you would create, like I have here, right, an English and a Spanish auto attendant. So that way I would have the English, right, auto attendant would have a full greeting in English, and the menu options would go to my staff members who speak English. Whereas my Spanish auto attendant, greeting in Spanish, and the menu options would go to my Spanish-speaking staff members. And then the other use case we have is for people with multiple businesses, right? Those extra other businesses, right, have their own main greeting, their own phone numbers, but you want the same staff people answering calls, right? So up here at the top, you would click on Add New Attendant. You give it a name. You give it an extension number. Click on Create Attendant. Now, your customers are probably never going to know these extension numbers. It's just basically so in case your staff needs a transfer to a different auto attendant. Now, when you click on the name, by default, it looks like this. It says unavailable in main menu, meaning it's defaulting to be a standalone attendant, a separate business. You can click on this, and now it's going to be available in main menu, meaning you can use it as the next action option from a group, for instance, or you can make a menu option from your virtual receptionist. And then you would click on Save Changes. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? So buy from new or add from spare. And then you also have the little gear icon here. The extension box, right? You had to give an extension when it was first created. You can have multiple extensions if you want to. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. And you'll see here that we have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? That's going to match what we already set up under main number. But in all cases, they can only go to the virtual receptionist. But then you would set up the menu options and your greetings and settings, right? Then save and save changes. Device tab shows all your devices on the account. If it's green, like this first one up here, that means the person is logged in and they count, or in this case, logged in because it's a soft phone, uh, and it's registered, right? So we can send calls to it. Red, unregistered, so we cannot send calls to it. So for something like a web phone or soft phone, right, they could be there just not logged into that particular application at this time, right? For a physical phone, like this one here, right? Again, it could be it's not plugged in for whatever reasons, or it could be they're having some sort of network problem, or maybe they're moving, who knows? This black device I have right here, this is the one I have turned off under enable, right? That's my unregistered device from the dashboard page. You can add devices directly here. It's just not, you can't assign them here, right? They would just be added as spare devices. Again, the main difference is for this soft phone, you don't have that toggle here, right? So you're only adding it as a third-party option. You have the little wrench icon here. If we go to audio, so for the VirtualPBX soft phone, you want the selected codec to be Opus, and that's what it is by default. So you should generally don't have to change it. And then the emergency caller ID, right? So you can choose whatever phone number you've set up for, in this case, I think this is one of Rose's phones. So that way I can have the correct address for Rose. And if we go down here, now for a physical phone, if we go to the advanced and audio, we want under selected, we want the G711U and G711A codecs over here on the right. They may not be there when you first add the device. You might have to click and drag them over. And then you would click on Save Changes. And again, you can do the emergency caller ID to set it up to the correct phone number. Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account, right? Main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files, or ringback files. You can add new ones up here, right? Give it a name, find the file, click on create greeting. It will upload it here, but you can't assign it here. Now it's just on your account. Right, so here you got the name, the source, right? TTS is text to speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. This column here allows you to play back the file directly in your browser, right? So you can listen to it if it's still relevant. If that doesn't work for whatever reasons, you still have the option here to download the file to your device and listen to it on your device's media player. And then you have the little wrench icon here. This is where you would change the name, right? So like that main open hours menu TTS, you can at least give it a name that you'd recognize. Or if you don't need it, you just click on delete greeting. But if you did change the name, click on save changes. Numbers tab takes you directly to your numbers in use. It shows you where numbers are in use and where they're assigned. You got the little gear icon here, so you can update the E911, caller ID, prepend, etc. Spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using, right? So these are likely the ones that you might want to get rid of if you're trying to decrease your bill. So once it's unassigned, you can come here and click on the box in front of it, and then the option here to delete shows up. You just click on that, and then click on delete numbers to confirm the deletion. And then the system says, I removed the numbers, and now you have less phone numbers on your account. Up here, you can buy numbers, right? So you can add more spare numbers, like you're about to expand. Let's say you're about to open 5 stores in a new metro area, right? So you probably have new area codes, but you want to make sure each store has its own number. Now, in that kind of situation where you're buying numbers ahead of time, I would say temporarily put them in use, like assign them to somewhere. That way you test the number to make sure it works properly, and then you can put it back to spare. A port, right here. This starts the port process. Give it basically click on new request, give it a name, choose local toll-free, and now the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill from the current carrier. There's a form to fill out where it wants it, like the company name, the address. It asks for a BTN, which stands for billing telephone number. If you're only porting one number, right, that number you're porting is your BTN. If you're porting multiple, you're going to need to talk to your current carrier. Some carriers require a PIN number to port out. This is typically what we see with the mobile carriers, but some of the VoIP or even like Canadian carriers also require a PIN number to port out. Sometimes it's on your invoice, sometimes you have to call them. Later in the process, you'll have the option to download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then upload a completed and signed LOA. The LOA is going to ask you for some of that same information that's on that form that you filled out in terms of like the company name, the address, the phone numbers reporting, as well as a PIN number. The main thing is on that LOA, we need it to be signed. You can use a digital signature file, that's fine, or you can print it out, sign it, and scan it back in, right? But it needs a signature, right? Just printing your name, like in both fields, won't work. Typing your name will not work. Sometimes some people's like signature file is too much like print, and it's been rejected. That happened once, like 6 months ago. In terms of porting, toll-free numbers take about 1 week to port. Local numbers vary, anywhere from a couple days to about 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo on our side, or in the case of addresses, if there's multiple addresses in the documentation you gave us, we try those other addresses first, if that was the error. But then, once we've exhausted anything that we could do, then we reach out to you saying, hey, we're getting a rejection for this reason, which means at that point, you need to contact the current carrier to find out what the correct information is in order to port out. Voicemail boxes, this shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Anything that has an entry under this user column here means it was the voicemail box created with the user. But up here at the top, you can create your own voicemail boxes. Right. Then you need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then click on Create Voicemail Box. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when you have a voicemail box number, that cannot be dialed directly from anywhere in the system, right? When they call into your main number, right, and they enter in a voicemail box number, that's not going to go anywhere unless it's also an extension number on a user, right? So if I created a voicemail box number and, right, let's say I numbered it, 5002, and I don't have a user with extension number 5002, someone calls in, enters 5002, that's going to be treated as an invalid entry unless I make it a menu option, right? 0 through 9 or star key. Now, once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the wrench icon. So this information you see here, this is what you would do to like listen to the messages over the phone or even change the greeting over the phone, right? In terms of the voicemail box number and the PIN number. Under advanced greeting media, this is where you can upload or assign a media file that's on the account already to a voicemail box. Now, you've got two entries here, temporary and media, right? The media should be your default, right? The temporary is for that out of office or vacation message. If both are selected, right, both have a media file in place, the temporary file plays and the media file does not. The media file won't play again until you set temporary back to none. And your user can actually do that over the phone. It's one of the options. Recipients. So your user voicemail boxes have one recipient built in, right? That email address used for login. But you can add additional emails here, right? Just click on the add button like I did, enter the email address, and keep clicking add if you want to add more. Right? Once you're done, you click on save changes. And then options. So once a voicemail box has a media file in place and recipients in place, you can click on already set up. And then save changes. You can also double check to make sure you attach the voicemails. If it's a busy voicemail box, like this is my support mailbox, I might be inclined to check this where it says delete after notification. And that way this voicemail box doesn't become full. Text forward. This is an add-on, so you've had to choose under the account page to add it on. But once you've done so, you click add number, choose a phone number on the account. You choose either an email address or a webhook. You can't do both, right? Most people choose email because that's by far the easiest. And what this does is basically whenever anyone texts one of these numbers, these people get an email saying, hey, here's the text and what it said. Basically, so you can read the messages, but it's not for going back out. All right, the call logs shows your call history on the account. There is probably not much for this week. or even for this month. So each of these days, right, or this week, this month, you can download the file. It's a CSV file. I'm going to go to custom here, and we will go to last month, and then click filter. So now I have more calls to choose from. The little green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system. When I click on it, you see I have two legs, right? This first leg is the call coming in, right? So the outside number calling in. The second leg is from the system out to my device. So I can see here, right, the call came in under my main number, came from Campbell as part of the caller ID, and it went to this particular device. If I scroll down, I have these yellow arrows to the left, right? These are outbound calls, right? So I see that this gene test made an outbound call to this number. Little fire hydrant icon or fire extinguisher icon, this reports the call, right? So it creates an email for you, sent already pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It only gives us the technical details. It won't tell us why you're sending us, right? So some calls from a technical side, they look fine, but that doesn't tell us that, oh, I didn't hear audio or my phone didn't actually ring, right? Two completely different things. So you want to type in the body of the email why you're sending the call into us. Now, the custom section here, you can go back up to 12 months. After that, you would have to contact our support team. We'd have to escalate it to our engineers who can go back up to 18 months. But after that, the data is not available. So if you need your call log data for some sort of compliance reasons, I would recommend downloading every month. And that way you don't have to worry about it. Feature codes. I've already talked about a couple of these, but these are ways for your VoIP phone users to directly access Dash features from their VoIP phones. This is a page also on our support pages. Under the support pages, you can also do a search for the phone commands cheat sheet. That one's probably a little bit more useful for most of your staff because it will have this little context help on there as well. All right, so that was a dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system. Right? So over here, you click on Edit Blacklists. If you don't have one, you would click on Add, right? And then you would give it a name. And then you choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not, right? So if a call comes in and we don't see a valid caller ID, right? It basically becomes anonymous at that point. You have this little toggle here, turn it off or on, right? By default, it's off, meaning those calls would get through. If you turn it on, that means they're getting blocked. They get a busy tone. But beyond that, down here, you would click on Add Number, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add to add more numbers until you're done. And then when you're done, you would click on Save. Now, once you click on Save, click on Back to Settings up here at the top, and then make sure your list is on the right here under Selected, right? So like you might have to click and drag it over, and then click Update. Even if the list is already over here on the right, click Update if you added anything to it. Call recording. So this does one of two things. If you use our call recording on our side, it would open up a new tab. It takes you to callrecordings.virtualpbx.com. It will ask you to log in using your Dash login information. You can view your call recordings. If you're making use of AWS integration, when you click on it, it basically shows you this interface showing, hey, this is what's on your AWS account. And I can probably do that. So then I can go further back. I can select the directions, right, inbound, outbound, etc., or who it came from, the target number, etc. You can download the file. You can play it back. If you want to delete files from your AWS account, you have to actually log into AWS directly in that kind of case. Monitor plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Doesn't matter what phone they're using, right? So if they're on an inbound call, if they're on a call, basically they have a blue box and they're showing who they're getting a call from or who they're speaking to. You can see who's available, who's busy. You can also do by devices versus employees. If there's an active inbound call, it would show up here, and each one would have a blue box showing who they're speaking to among your staff. If a call has been parked, it will show up here with the caller ID and the parking spot number. Reports will this is a plan specific feature. This will open up to a new tab, take you to reports.virtualpbx.com, where advanced reporting is. This is basically where you can create your own reports. If you go down in the show notes, you will see a link there for the advanced reporting demo. I would say take a look at that, because that will give you a better way of showing what the reports do than what I could even try to do here. And if that's something you're interested in, you want to reach out to our account services team. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail box manager. As an admin, you can get to any voicemail box on the account. And then you can see, so this is my voicemail box, but I can see the messages here, the date, the time, the phone numbers involved. I can play back the message. I can download the message. If I click on the box, I can move a message to the appropriate voicemail box or change its status. And you can see here, one has already been marked for deletion because that's the one I did earlier. Integration AWS, this is where you would set up that AWS integration. If you had a new account, you would have to get, this is the information basically you have to get from your AWS account in order to fill it out. This last one is pretty easy because that's just the Amazon S3 account URL. All right, up here, call center. This opens a new tab, takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. This is where you're making use of call queues. So in the show notes, you want to look at the ACD Queues Pro demo to see what queues can do. Queues are an advanced version of groups, right? So in a queue, your staff members can log themselves in and out of the queue, right? So that means they can take calls or not. They can also mark themselves away, right? So that way calls will skip them. Likewise, when your staff members are in a queue and they're on a call from that queue, the system knows. And so it doesn't offer them that queue, right? They don't have to wait. There's not extra wait time for trying to ring to someone who's already helping someone else. You have different routing options within a queue. We have like most idle, right? Who's been waiting the longest, or round robin to equalize out over time, things of that nature. The queues also allow managers in the queue to eavesdrop in on a call, right? So they can listen in. They can also whisper to their staff member to help them as they're going through a call, or barge in if things are getting out of control. Dynamic caller ID, plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. Right, you would click on Create New Rule. Right, you need to give it a name. Then you select a phone number on your account. And then most people choose either a feature code or an area code. So if I go down here, so here, right, I gave the name Vegas. So I chose a 702 number on the account because that's the area code for Las Vegas. And I just said, hey, whatever my staff members dial a 702 phone number, change their outbound caller ID to this number. So it looks local to them. Right. The other option was to create a feature code. So here, my staff members need to dial *951, then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, the system changed their phone number to, no, looks like they don't. I can just choose a number on this account, like so, right? So now it changes to this 408 number and save changes. Faxes, included feature. This goes to your fax manager. You can get to any fax box on the account. And here I can see, I'm on my inbound fax tab, so I can see the faxes that have come in, the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the number of pages. I can download the file. I can also click on the box here to change it, to get rid of it. Outbound faxes, choose the fax box. And you see here, whether they failed or succeeded, right? The date, the time, phone numbers involved, etc. If you hover over the failures, it should give you some additional information. So this one is saying it timed out, waiting for initial connection. So we had that. So the number was valid, right? We got that. We heard a pickup tone, but then we didn't hear the proper fax transmission back and forth to have a successful connection. So basically, if you see any failures here, that means there was a problem with that other phone number. Email to fax logs, if you see anything here, that means the system had a problem processing the request. Right, so you can see the email addresses involved, right? So make sure those are correct, right? So if you see like someone's like Gmail or Yahoo Mail or something like that, that probably means that failed because of the email address that they used. But the little eyeball icon here to the far right, this will tell you what happened. And in this case, no valid attachments. Now, that could be because they forgot to attach a file, or they chose something other than a PDF or TIFF file. Number Manager just takes you back to your spare numbers page. Webhooks. This is an advanced feature you'd want to check on our in the show notes for the Introduction to Zapier webinar. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software, right? Zapier being one of the primary ones because it links to so much. But it's basically some level of programming. Up here at the top, you click on New Webhook. Essentially, you fill out this form, and you link it to what other software you're using. Zapier makes it a little bit easier than this. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team if you're interested in this feature. You could also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then lastly, we have the user portal here. So again, it starts off on your voicemails. You see your voicemails, date, time, playback, download, and then put a check mark in front to change its status. You can see your individual call history, and you can change the filter. And then I can see my call history going back. The fax tab only works for users that have their own individual fax. Individual fax box, so they can see their fax history. The contact list is everything within your Dash account, right? This is so your staff can more easily transfer calls, for example. Right? It's not something they could add, like your salespeople couldn't add their clients list to this. This is just within your account. Conference tab only works for users with their own conference or the conference feature enabled. Over here on the right is where they can change their moderator or participant PIN numbers. You typically want those to be different. You also have the option here to change if people join deafened or muted, as well as entry and exit tones. When you're in a conference, you can come to this page. The plus sign, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference so no one else can join. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, and end the conference call. Also, while in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own box. This allows you as a moderator to mute specific people or even kick out a specific person. And the Settings and Devices tab, this right here is where your staff members enable call forwarding on their own. Let's put a check mark here, put in +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then save changes. Likewise, they would just come back up here and uncheck it when they're done. And that is everything. All right, I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I do thank you for your time today, and we'll be here again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific.